Thank you. Thank you for coming. Each time I have to introduce myself, usually I get really confusing looks. The part of the reason is actually, in German at least, the way it goes is, I say, ich bin Inder, and of course you can look at me. Well, why do I have to do that, right? You can guess that I'm Indian, but then I have to tell them, of course, it's not just my name, but I'm also Indian, right? So this is the part of the confusion there, that people feel sort of, well, we can see that we can't say anything, and that's the root cause of confusion. And then the moment I say that I'm actually developer advocate, the way I assume it, the way people picture me, I'm assuming that they think something like this, which is not really the case. And if I ended up like explaining it a bit differently, saying I'm in developer relations, right? And then I guess they assume something like this, which is also not true. And that's why actually we are here to talk about what is developer relations. So basically actually talking about what I do as a developer advocate. So first thing first, since we are talking about developer relations, the central persona is a developer who is building something. And then you actually have a software vendor, a company, a particular individual, or group of people basically building a software on which a developer is actually building again on top of it, right? So you have a developer, you have a vendor who is producing one sort of maybe SDK, some tool, and the developer is using that tool or SDK to build something on top of it, right? So there exists, because of this product use, a relationship, right? If a company is producing something and there is a user, you have a relationship. And exactly because of this relationship, there exists developer relations. This is a team or group of individuals who are there to sort of create and nurture that relationship that exists. Let's actually try to understand what actually it means. This is a guy, Sam Julian from writer.com. The way he describes the developer relation is sort of like this, that the main task of developer relation is to build a relationship. That's the first important task about this whole group of activities. You are there to build relationships. But with whom? And that's where the second part is. People who are already using your product or potential users. So you have both of these group of people. But what are you doing basically? You are a mediator between the company who is producing the software or tool and the users or developers who are using it, right? You are in between them. You are taking ideas and feedback from one place to another place and back and forth. That is basically the job. But one crucial aspect that differentiates the developer relations from marketing or sales is, even though that you are hired by the company, you are advocating for the developer's best interest. That is one crucial difference between sales, marketing team, and developer relation or advocacy team. Now the introduction is out of the way. Let's actually talk more concrete into key areas in which developer relation team works. Well, first thing is awareness. Imagine that you have built a super fancy software which does all sorts of things, maybe the fancy new AI model, I don't know, and then no one knows about it. Well, doesn't matter how good it is. If no one knows about it, no one's going to use it. And that is the first job as a developer relation team, that you're going to bring the awareness about the tool, product to the people so that they know what is there. And then you can do multiple things to actually create awareness. One is actually you can write about it. Maybe you have a newsletter, you write about it, and people read that newsletter, and they find out, well, there is this new tool or this new feature in the tool, right? You can do that. You can go to Meetups, conferences. You can host, you can have a booth there. And then usually in conference or Meetup, if you have a booth, people would come and see, well, what do you have for them, right? Maybe you have a demo of the product running there. You can show that. And that's another way of showing the awareness for the product. Well, this is another place. Imagine that someone has a problem, and they are asking for the solution on Stack Overflow or somewhere else, and then you are writing about the solution using the tool that you're actually sort of selling. That's another way of showing the awareness, right? Creating YouTube videos, easy. You just imagine, again, someone wants to create a new fancy blog, and I am from a company who has created a tool to build the blogs and documentation stuff. I can create a video, how to create a modern blog in 2025. And if there's a video, someone would search it. Of course, they're going to see the product. Another way of basically bringing awareness. Yet another way, you can write a blog post. Office hours is a special one. Imagine that there's sort of community already existing. You can go there, show up, and start answering people's question just randomly out of the blue. That also happens, and this is one way of bringing the awareness. Now imagine that at this point, a lot of people, a lot of developers know that you have a software tool, right? And now they want to use it, but they don't know how to use that. And this is actually another aspect of a developer relation team, that you are one responsible for educating those developers. They know how there is a product. They know sort of what it does, but they don't know how to use it, right? So you are going to create actually education for that product by conducting workshops. Maybe there's a Meetup or actually conference going on. Usually you would see, for instance, if there's an Angular or React conference, you would see a lot of workshops there, right? You can just go there representing your product and conduct the workshop. And that's where you're going to educate those people about the tool that you actually are building. Yeah, instead of just hosting a booth, you can go there and talk about your product. Simple as that. Writing documentation. Not a lot of people know that actually DevRel teams actually write a lot of documentation, or at least first version of documentation. Well, you are the one sometime close to the developer or user of the product, right? And then you know what they need. You can actually help them, the documentation team, in writing the first version of documentation, and then they can take it from there and make it better. That's another job of DevRel team. Again, answering question not only just bring awareness, but also it brings the education. If you're solving a problem, that is showing the usage of the product or tool, right? So that's another way of doing it. Same, creating educational videos, another way. Create code examples. I mean, I personally remember that initially I was learning just by looking at GitHub code for a lot of people who have created maybe example code, right? In fact, a lot of companies actually have something called as sample apps. Microsoft, for instance, if you want to learn how to make VS Code extensions, you would see they have huge repository with, I think, more than 100 examples of how to code certain feature here and there. In fact, Dynatrace also had sample apps on our developer portal where people can just go and look how to build a real-world production application. So you have this, you can create code examples that people can just learn from sort of semi-real-world use cases, or real-world use cases also, and learn from there. So that's how you are also educating people. Now imagine that you have already actually made people aware that you have this nice fancy software. They also already are using it because you are educating them. At this point, those people actually would start having some sort of thoughts about this tool, good or bad, doesn't matter. They have started having these thoughts. Maybe they like certain part of your tool a lot, and they want this feature or this aspect to be replicated in other part of the tool. Or they have some feedback because they didn't like this particular thing, X, Y, Z in your tool. And this is where the third part comes in. It's DevRel team's responsibility to actually collect, gather feedback, and do something with that. This is very crucial part. So far, actually, if you look at it, awareness and education is more like speaking. You're going out, you're talking to people, you are giving something from your side. And the other aspect is actually taking back from the people. And basically, the feedback is you're taking it back from the people. How you do that, basically? The team actually is sort of responsible for creating a place where people can provide the feedback. It can be just physical space. It can also be online space. I mean, again, Stack Overflow is like internet's feedback sort of place, right? People from any place can just go there and write about what bad stuff about this particular software, or actually help if they need it, right? So Stack Overflow, again, if I would repeat it, it's like internet's feedback place online. But a lot of companies also have their own individual feedback forums, right? Where you can go and explicitly talk about that particular portal. If I'm not wrong, all the AI companies, they have community. I don't remember the name of the product, but the one that generates images, they also. No, AI tool that generates the images. No, that's from OpenAI, but there's one which is individual company. I don't remember again the name. Sorry? Midjourney, yeah. So you know that initially the way it started was actually they had some sort of Slack community or some other community where you can actually generate the pictures, right? But at the same time, they also had a place where you can already give the feedback. So you need a place where people can collect the feedback for you. And that is many times responsibility of a DevRel team. Again, gathering, so you need a place. You have to also understand that feedback. Many times you would get people giving all sorts of feedback. That doesn't, not to say that it's not useful or valuable, but you have to first understand what actually is the crux of the problem, if there is a problem. And that's where you have to sit together, understand. You have to connect the dots. You have to refine it. Why do you actually have to refine it? It's another question that you might ask. Well, because you actually want to do something with that feedback. Imagine something is wrong in the product. Now you have refined it. Next ideal step would be actually to talk to dev teams who have created that product, right? Tell them, well, this user has reported XYZ problem with the tool or the documentation. What do you think about it, right? Have an open discussion about it. And from there, you can actually do a lot of things. Maybe you have now a feature request there, you have a bug ticket there, and that dev team would do something about it. And your job doesn't stop here with the feedback. The next thing is actually you have to take that feedback, give it to developer teams, but the solution and the other things that you get from the developer team, you have to take it back and give it to those users who have initially gave you the feedback, right? This sort of complete this loop of feedback, and that is actually very crucial for the DevRel team. Now, we are not done yet. We have the feedback. Although reason for feedback is community, but this is again the reason, one of the responsibility of DevRel team. Not only you have to create a place for feedback, you also have to create a place for people to just come together. What you want to do is you want to make sure that the people who are there, they feel to be part of a group. And the reason for this is actually when you see that a lot of people, they feel part of the group, they ended up doing your job for you. I think I vividly remember that we have a Dynatrace community, which is an online place, and people can ask questions, people can actually answer. And many times, even though it's my team's responsibility actually to answer a lot of questions there, you see people from other companies who are using Dynatrace, they are answering faster than us. They're just going there and answering already. That's one thing. There are a lot of people actually giving a lot of tips already because they have, imagine that all those people have done so many things, used the product, they have figured out what is good or what is bad. Not only they are actually telling us as a company, giving the feedback, but also giving to the community, well, if you have this problem, try this already. That helped me, right? And this is why you need actually community. It again can be again online or offline place. Many times, a lot of companies, for instance, if there is again some event already happening, even for instance, Dynatrace has a Perform event happening now, which is a conference from the company. There is also one team which is creating its own meetup there because there is a community. It's, I think, some sort of guild that we have. So they invite people from this group, say, well, we have a meetup, come there, talk to us. I'm pretty sure that, for instance, each time there is a big Angular conference, Angular team just goes there to represent the team, basically. Why do you want to do that? Actually, is again, you get the raw feedback. You also want to make people feel connected and belong there. Not to say, well, we are family. That's not the reason. But just for them to feel that they belong and they can ask questions. They can share the solution and stuff like that, right? So you provide a place for people to hang out by doing regular meetings, maybe online meetings. A lot of technical writing group have regular meetings just to sort of create the community. Online forum, as I mentioned before, physical events as well. You can also do events like hackathon, which sort of make people feel like they're part of the community. That is sort of summing up the job of a developer relation, where you actually start from awareness, you actually do the education, you create a feedback loop, and you also have a community that you nurture, basically. Now, imagine that you know all this stuff, and now you already are interested in doing that stuff, because maybe that fancies you. So how do you actually get started with developer relations? Actually, that is my answer, and that's actually how I started. lot of people actually, if you look around, I showed you so many varied skill set that you need to be part of developer relations, right? You can create videos, you can maybe talk, you can write, you can provide code sample and stuff. And I'm pretty sure all of us have one or the other capability already. My suggestion, actually, the way I started is actually start from what you already know. So the way I started was actually, I was interested in writing technical content. And I at some point had a solution for creating an application, Ionic application, which is the mobile application. And then I ended up writing a guest blog post for a company. And I think I started with the one, then I started 2 or 3 more. And then I also did a couple of Meetup talks here in Vienna. And I think I already had some stuff to showcase, and I actually interviewed at Andres, and I got the job, basically. So start from what you already know. Maybe things like, if you want to write, start a blog. Enjoy creating demos, put it on GitHub, right? Share it on the LinkedIn. Well, you know what, I've created this fancy, I don't know, some application. Do you want to take a look? You would see that people would start seeing your stuff for sure. You want to give a talk? Talk to Andreas, for instance, right? Just come up here and provide your new fancy solution or whatever you have built, right? Video creation, again, I think this is more fancy approach these days. If you want to get a little bit famous, you know how to do stuff, maybe create a video. Perfect example. Why do you actually want to do that? Again, of course, I mentioned that you want to get this job, but how does it help you? What are the benefits here? First is it improves your skills. If you want to be in this field, you definitely have to those skills that I mentioned. But if you already start doing it before you get a job, you're already improving your skills. That goes a long way. This is another aspect, right? Once you started doing those things, you can easily put that on your resume. People would see you have done stuff. In fact, if you go to my website, you would see that I collected all the things I do in one single place, just exactly because of this thing. Each time I give a Meetup talk, I put it there. It's there. I sometimes even create a blog post out of this talk, and then I put it there. And someone opens my website, immediately they know all the things that I've done. So if you would keep doing things that you know, it also gives you body of work that you can share in the end. But most importantly, actually, it gives you exposure. Each time you would go to Meetup, write a blog post that you would share, people would know that you exist. I can tell you from my experience that for the last 3-4 years, I didn't have to reach companies for actually get the job. Most of the time, it's the opposite. People would just write me on LinkedIn, hey, we have seen your work. Do you want to work for us, right? In fact, the guest author thing that I mentioned, I wrote for then afterwards 2 blogs. And both of them came because I wrote the first blog post that I mentioned for Auth0. And they just saw it, said, we liked your blog post. Do you want to write it for us? And that's how I ended up getting other extracurricular activity stuff. So it helps you improve your skills, gives you body of work, and also, most importantly, gives you exposure. And then that is one way of then getting the job. That sums up my talk. So just to reiterate, the developer relation is all about building and nurturing the relationship between the developer who is using a software or tool provided by another company. That is what developer relationship is. There are 4 key areas in developer relations. One is education, awareness, feedback, and community. And finally, if you want to get into this field, okay, that is too fast. Start from what you already know. Most of you guys actually know a lot of stuff. Many times, actually, I see people hesitate to talk about or write about stuff that they already know, thinking that it's not enough. People already know that much. But no, that's not really the case. Maybe things that you know, actually you know. For sure, you have your own perspective. No one would have the same perspective as you. So go out and start sharing, maybe writing code, create video and stuff. That's a good enough start for this job already. With that said, this is the last bit. I also wrote the blog post with the same content. If for any reason you want to read it again, there are some links there as well as a reference. You can check it out, and I leave it there.
Thanks a lot.
Yep. Any questions? Please.
So does or is your job as a DevRel also to watch other channels than the official ones you created? Like, it's easy to rant about any tool on, let's say, X or whatever platform. So how do you find the feedback that does not hit your official channels?
Actually, this is something we are talking recently, that we as a developer advocate should be on, for instance, Stack Overflow. LinkedIn, we are for sure active there. If someone tags or says something about Dynatrace, we figured it out. But Stack Overflow, we are trying to be there. If someone is writing about a developer Dynatrace apps, we would be able to answer there. And it's, I think, vital point. This should be done if you want to be successful as a DevRel team.
Can you set up an alert on Stack Overflow?
Yes, you can do that. You can sort of follow the hashtags, right? And that gives you sort of observability into what are people asking there. Yeah. Any other questions? Please.
What's your channel or mode of communication with the development team? Do you just ping them anytime you got feedback from the community, or do you do a weekly, hourly session with the development team to give them the feedback from the community and learn what you can give towards the community?
That's a very good question. I guess you heard the question. It's how you actually give the feedback to the developer teams, right, from the external users. So first thing you have to understand is that as a DevRel team, your first job is to actually understand the feedback, right? Imagine that someone wrote something XYZ about the product. You have to first, if it is a bug, you have to try to replicate it, right? Just to make sure, well, is it really a bug, or maybe that person might be doing something else, and all you have to do is just provide the answer. So first thing is try to understand the feedback by started doing those activities if it has to be done, or try to understand. Then you would know what to do with it. Again, if it's a bug, the first thing is just start creating a bug ticket. If it's a false positive, the team would know what to do with that, right? Your job as a DevRel is maybe then create a bug ticket. If it's just a feedback, again, back to that developer who wrote this feedback, just provide the solution. Many times you have to actually clarify with those people who have created stuff, hey, what do you mean actually? Do you want this or do you want that actually? So you have this kind of thing. First you have to understand the feedback, and then you would know what to do with that. And just answering your question more explicitly, as said, if it's a bug ticket, if it's a bug, you can just simply create a bug, right? You can also ping the developer, right? Many times companies have internal channels that you can also ask the question the way it was asked in the external community, right? Literally explicitly saying, well, hey, I have tried to do this, seems to be a bug. What do you think about it? And if it's not a bug, those people who have created the tool would tell you, well, it's not a bug, this is how you use it. Maybe you're using it wrong, right? Finally, to your question again, it depends on company to company, right? Maybe there is a company who have very fixed processes, then you have to follow that. But in my experience, most of the time, developers are really eager to know if there's a bug because they don't want to have bugs in their tool. So if you just DM them, that is also good enough start. They would tell you what to do with that afterwards. Yep.
Thank you.
Any other question? Please.
I had a question, and my question was, if you learn programming for years for something and you have some theory, you know,
Mm-hmm.
you got to learn theory, and now you want to go into practical work, but you have just things you learned, you know, fall apart, and you just want to get them all together. But it's like kind of difficult, you know, if you wasn't dedicated to the developing, or you know what I mean?
It's not fully, but
yeah.
keep talking. I'm trying to get it.
It's okay. I'm speaking now from my perspective. So I was learning for 2 years and had just the knowledge from different sources,
Mm-hmm.
from school, from work, and now I want just to get them together.
Mm-hmm.
And want to learn programming now fully, you know, but I got confused in this way of learning,
Mm-hmm.
and I need a tip how to get it all together.
Mm-hmm. I think.
Finally, the practical work.
Mm-hmm. Look, there are a lot of developers here. I know that already, right? And most of them would tell you that learning is one thing, but it takes you so far. You have to start building already, especially if you want to become a software developer. Because in the end, you are not a developer if you are not developing. You can learn all sort of fancy stuff. but you have to make it to use it in practice. That is the only tip that I can think of, right? Start building something, even as small as, I don't know, hello world, start from there already, right? Start building stuff. You might have problems around you. I remember my time when I was studying in college, just for the sake of having, being fancy about creating solutions, I ended up creating just a small C program for helping my cousin to sort of solve a math problem. There's nothing fancy about it. I knew tools existed, but I just did that. And that way you learn a lot in practice how to deal with software stuff, right? So my suggestion would be start building, even if it's a small thing. Maybe just create your own blog. You would learn a lot about front-end development if you create a blog. You might end up learning a lot about how to deploy a website if you just create a blog, right? You take it, how to buy domain name, how to connect DNS and the hosting and the domains, right? When you start doing stuff, that's when you actually learn stuff. If you just read stuff, theoretical part, you are just thinking that you are learning. That's not real learning until you make it to practice. I hope that answered your question.
Yeah, thank you.
Yeah. And
I have a question.
please.
Actually, it is related to the previous question
Mhm.
about the feedback. So, if suppose any any person from the community gives us a feedback that this particular block of code, instead of doing it this way, this is a simplest way, or you can use the AI tool for solving the same thing. So if we get such type of feedback, so what we can call it? I mean, it is not a bug. It is not something that our code is not working, or it is not efficient enough.
Mhm.
But we are getting a parallel solution
Mhm.
for the same thing.
Mhm.
So how we are going to, handle that type of feedback?
Again, very good question. Multiple ways of dealing with it. My personal way, all the time I deal with this feedback is I just try to play with it. I kind of really like creating examples, playing with the code someone has mentioned. First thing for me would be just start to see, try to do the same code, right? See what it does. If someone says it's about performance, you can just measure it. It's not that hard to measure performance of code, right? You can measure that to a certain degree, right? And then you have your answer. Well, if it's really good and someone is giving you a solution already, why not actually incorporate it? I'm pretty sure your development team would be happy that you have provided a solution to them. So first thing again is just to try to understand the feedback. In this case, if someone is giving you a tip, try to see if it's really a tip or someone's opinion. If it's just opinion and you don't really want to use it, just say thank you to them and that's it. You can leave it there. Thank you for providing us this tip. That's not a bad thing, right? This is good enough. Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah. Any other questions? Okay.
Not a question, but relating these 2 or 3 questions, many times there is a problem to solve. You write the code, it's doing the job, you're happy with it, you submit it, and somebody is saying, listen, there are like better ways, faster ways, cleaner ways, something where it can make you feel like, ooh, what have I done? This is ridiculous. And we need to remember sometimes that there are millions of ways to solve coding problems, and maybe my way is not the best, but it's working, so this is what I can, this is the best I can do. It's not bad, it's maybe not the best, but it's good.
Mm-hmm.
Somehow good. Just need to be, to have some confidence.
Yeah, sure. As said, you can just say thank you to the person who have given you feedback and leave it there. That is good enough. You don't have to take all the feedback and do something with it. Saying thank you is good enough. Yeah. Okay, if there are no other questions, I think, yeah, please.
For smaller teams
Mm-hmm.
that do not have a dedicated developer advocate,
Mm-hmm.
would you advise for these devs to do to some degree developer relations as well, or would you try to avoid mixing these two roles or layers?
Really good question. Please.
Repeat the question.
Yeah, so the question is, if you have a smaller teams and you can't have a DevRel team, how do you incorporate the work of a DevRel team in the software team? do you want them to do the developer relation work, or you just don't want them to do it, right? That's the question.
Yeah.
Well, again, it depends on so many things. First is that, do you even value developer relation work or not, right? It depends on the team and the company. If you value, well, you want to do that, right? You might even ask your company to get a head count to just do 1% developer relation team. That's one solution, right? Other solution could be actually that you want the team to actually do something about it. My personal opinion is actually it's not a problem as long as you are separating the work. You're clearly defining, well, this is a dev rel work. Sure, a software developer can do it and wants to do it, but no, when they are doing this, they are doing the dev rel work. They are not doing the software development work. If you can clearly separate it, I don't think it's a problem, because then you have sort of a developer has a priority, or the team has a priority, right? And you can put the developer relation work in a priority list, and you can assign that person, and that person knows that now they are doing developer relation. Shouldn't be a problem. But it has to be transparent, right? It shouldn't be like that, that no one knows that this person is doing developer relation work, and it's just happening, but there is no transparency. There are so many downsides if you have no transparency, because no one is then definitely talking about it, right? So first thing is actually you figure out, do you want it as a team or the company? Then you start figuring out the solution. Because as said, in Dynatrace, we realized that we are building a tool that a lot of developers are using it. It's a good investment for our company to actually have a team. And that's how we started. We had actually just one person in the beginning for developer Dynatrace apps. Just one person doing everything about Dynatrace app, making videos, doing courses, doing presentation, and all sort of stuff. Eventually, we realized we need more person because this is valuable. We added more people there. So start from there. Ask yourself, do you want it? Can you get a head count? If you can't get a head count, can you spare some hours from your development team, separate it nicely, that this is the development relation work? I think you have some sort of solution then.